I grew up in this country which was called the German Democratic Republic. So I was 11 years, formative years, the first decade, I experienced that in socialism. I had this seeking thing of what is true democracy, because that was not democracy. And for some reason, it felt like home. So how I found it, that might be really interesting.
My name is Dodie Blomberg. I'm a lead trainer with the Positive Discipline Association, and I'm here with my very dear friend, Eva Dwight, who is a trainer with the Positive Discipline Association. And we have a special guest here. Eva, I'm going to put it to you to introduce our dear friend, Annette.
Yeah, hi, I'm Eva Dwight. As Dodie said, I'm a positive discipline trainer, and we met Annette last September 2023 when she was a participant in our Positive Discipline in the Classroom online training, which is just an amazing experience because Dodie and I are in Arizona in the US, and Annette is in Ireland, and we just really are so interested by the work that she's doing in Ireland, and so we want her to introduce herself. And just, Annette, tell us a little bit about your story, how you came to positive discipline, and we'll just let you take it from there.
Yeah, so thank you so much. It's an absolute privilege. It's my first time ever, and I'm a little bit nervous, but that's part of the whole positive discipline journey, right? To make mistakes. And I had a great pep talk from both my children this afternoon. So I'm a mother of a almost 14-year-old daughter, and my son is 10. And how my journey was a little bit the reverse. So I started when my firstborn was 8 months old. I took part in a parenting course. My friend who had also an 8-month-old baby, she said, my friend's parents are starting parenting course tomorrow. Would you like to join? And I didn't have a clue what to expect. All I knew was I had these ideas about not to parent my children. And sometimes I think it's like tile shopping, you know the tiles for the house that you don't want, makes it so much easier than to choose the tile. So that parenting course was based on Rudolf Dreikurs's Children the Challenge. And we took part in that parenting course, and then the participants who took part, I kind of organized for us to keep meeting every month, and we went through all the different stages of toddlerhood and starting school, all based on going back to what Dreikurs recommended in the book. And then my children were 6 and 3. And the couple who facilitated, they were already had 6 grown-up children. So they had given courses in the 80s, parenting courses, and they were asked by one of their children who also now had children to facilitate a course. And they started to become my friends, and I was at their house, it wasn't parenting related at all. And my friend had found Jane Nelson's Positive Discipline. And the first thing he introduced to me was the hand model of the brain. And I was won over straight away. And he said, it's done really easy. He had gotten the Positive Discipline, the workbook for parents, which you're all familiar with. And he said, you just need to do it 1 week at a time, as Jane Nelson recommends. And then I started facilitating courses based on that. And I needed that courage, it gave me courage that it was so simplified, so experiential and practical. And then over the following 5 years, alongside my full-time job, I facilitated about 17 parenting courses in the evening. And I thought I was on my own, and that was the hard thing, how this came to Ireland was through an Adlerian psychologist from Chicago, who came to Ireland in the 80s and introduced it. So there wasn't any group or anything doing it. And eventually I found Positive Discipline in the organization, and it was such a relief. I could ask all these questions, how it's done. And that's when I became, only 2 years ago, a parent educator.
So Annette, all of us come through a different way, which I love that. And our hearts match the work. I'm a little curious about how has it impacted you as a person or as a parent? Because I think it does that for all of
Mm.
us.
It does. And so what I didn't say, you can probably hear it in my accent. I was born in Germany, in East Germany. And I grew up in this country which was called the German Democratic Republic. I don't know if you have heard of it. In short, it was called GDR.
And
Might
that
have
was
seen
before the
before.
wall came down between East and
Yes.
West Germany, correct?
That's it. So I was 11 years old in 1989, without giving my age away. And so I got those formative years, the first decade, I experienced that in socialism, you know. And I mean, the ideas sounded amazing, you know, that everything belongs to everyone, and it's all for the collective. But the big wake up came when in 89 the wall came down and all these kind of lies had come out from the government, you know, those secret services. I don't know if you watched that movie, The Life of Others. I don't know when that came out. It was about that East German secret service, and it was so hard, you know. So I was then a teenager in the 90s, and I just was, I had this seeking thing of what is true democracy, because that was not democracy, you know. And then I was, as a teenager in the 90s, started learning French, and I started to be so interested in the French Revolution. So I had my hopes up that maybe in France they managed to find the democracy. So after school, I went to France and I lived in Bordeaux for a year, where the wine comes from. And I couldn't find it there either. And I met a lot of Irish people in Bordeaux, and for some reason it felt like home. And Ireland was booming at that time. Loads of multinationals, especially from the US, coming here. So loads of jobs for foreign speakers. And yeah, I came to Ireland, and then after I had my first child, you know, I found that. So how I found it, that might be really interesting. So I had said yes to going to that parenting course, and I took my 8-month-old with me. So I was half feeding her, half listening to all these new principles. And on the second night, I will never forget this. I don't know if you're familiar with this particular demonstration, but it was where the facilitators demonstrated the power contest. So they got us, one was the parent, the other was the child, and they got us to push the hands together. And the parent said, "You will do your homework," or "You will, you know, you will." And the child would reply back and say, "No, I won't, and hold up this kind of power contest, you know.
Yeah.
And then the facilitators invited the demonstration couple that the parent withdraws from that power contest, and very gently. And the parent withdrew, and then there was no more power contest. You know, one party had withdrawn, and for that split moment, as it sometimes happens in life, I just got this whole big epiphany about why there is this power struggle everywhere in relationships, you know, and what needs to be done. I'm not saying there's a power struggle in every relationship. I'm saying what comes to it. And I could see personally, to bring it back to me, I could see my part in it, you know. If ever I felt like a victim in any relationship I was in, I now in that moment saw, oh my God, I'm contributing to holding up that power contest. And that's been my fascination ever since, to share that with parents. And Dwight says, I don't know if you know this quote, but he says, as parents, we're asked to take the sail out of the wind. Have you heard this before?
Yes.
Which are all these 180-degree, you know, different perspectives how to look at it. So now I kind of made it my mission to share with parents when to stay and when to walk away, you know.
Because the normal way we think of that is taking the wind out of their sails. And really, if we take away the sail, there's nothing to catch the wind. And so it really removes that power struggle. I just really love that analogy. Thank you for bringing that back to my awareness, because I've heard it, but I haven't used it for a long time.
Wow.
So it sounds like you grew up in a a state where there were more of a what we might call a vertical relationship, a power over
Yeah.
parents over children, government over everybody, just kind of this way. And that when you speak about democracy, I think what I sense is feeling more on an equal footing with each other as human beings. Is that accurate?
That's exactly it. And for some reason, I was in the pool with my children this afternoon. We had this in-depth conversation about East Germany. You know, my eldest is really interested in history, and we were looking back a little bit on that childhood over there, and I was reflecting and like this democracy, you know, that we're here, but East German children, we were all here. We were in so much fear of those grown-ups and those in authority. And something I struggled with personally, when you ask how did it impact me as a person, in East Germany, it wasn't like this in all socialist countries, but in East Germany, it was decided that religion was completely removed. So we didn't have a choice. We were not allowed to be religious. You know, we couldn't do the full, you couldn't go to university if you didn't have the degree you needed from school, you know. I don't know what it is in the US, but here it would be the leaving certificate in Ireland. And so we were, where was I going with this? Because we didn't have this choice to believe that there was something out there that is maybe bigger than us, we were led to believe that maybe those in authority, the teachers, politicians, you know, anyone who's in the party, there was one party in East Germany. So where's, you know, that's not really democratic if you go to the polling station and you can make one choice. And yeah, the fear, there was so much fear in my growing up, and I knew as a child, I have the words for it now, but I always felt that I was always kept down here, and I knew I deserved to be here, you know, even with those in authority. So it's a journey to overcome that fear.
I'm sure it has been, and it sounds like it's been a process for you. And because it all is, when we're raised on one paradigm and when we start to make a shift, it takes time to baby step our way toward another paradigm. And so I'm curious about, as you've been living these positive discipline principles, now you discovered them when your child was 8 months old or so, and now they're teenagers, correct? You said 13 and 10?
13 and 10, that's right, yeah.
So you've been practicing these for more than a decade now, and I'm curious about, what do you notice in your own family as you practice positive discipline principles and tools?
Yeah. So when I hear that, I don't have the direct comparison, you know, because as you know, but what comes to mind is every now and then when I'm tired or stressed or overwhelmed, I fall back into my old patterns, you know? So what I notice is when I'm not practicing those principles, and then our home is in utter chaos. I don't know if you can relate to this, you know, and I won't go into too much detail to protect my daughter, but on Sunday morning, you know, it came to a head, and it escalated about her phone usage and the guidelines we had set, you know, and the plan we had for that day, and how that she needed to still do homework, how that interfered with our plans. And I was in shock over her reaction, and I won't say what that is, right? We need to protect our children, but I think you can relate having this collision with a teenage child, which you both had. Not saying you had collisions, but you know, you raised
We have
teenagers.
collisions. Everybody has collisions.
So when I came out of my shock reaction on Sunday, I noticed that, or I always go into, you know, what happened? And I always see myself like as I'm falling into the mud, you know, when I fall back to the old patterns, I'm in the mud. And if I didn't have positive discipline and the Adlerian principles, I would be like, what do I do now? I don't know how to get myself cleaned up. But eventually, because I have these tools, I like, oh, okay, I need to go for a shower or go for a swim in the sea, And what I realized when I had calmed down and I could think again was we hadn't had a family meeting since the Easter break, which was 2 weeks back. And what we did, I'm separated from my children's father, but we still here live in the same house. And the older my children got, the more regular our family meetings have become. And I know the guidance is to do it every week, but when they were younger, we only had it once a month. And I said to myself, I'd rather have 12 a year than none a year, And the benefits were huge. So since last September, we had them every Friday afternoon, where we made our plans for the weekend. Who needs what, who has what match to play, and it worked really, really well. So what I'm trying to say is it's not like with these principles that all the challenges in parenting go away. And I found myself at the weekend, my son, we were at the beach, my son, myself, he picked up this big rock here. He calls it Mr. Potato Head. And he was picking up these rocks and they were getting heavier and heavier. And on our walk back to the car, we could barely carry our stuff. And we picked up a rock, went down, and there was were these parents right in front of us with a 1-year-old. And I heard myself saying to these parents, the small children pick up small stones, and the bigger the children get, the bigger the stones get.
Oh.
So it's not like the challenges are going away, but with these tools and skills, our capacity grows. And that's the beauty of positive parenting, positive discipline, for me.
Yeah. So, Annette, I know for me too, that when those collisions, I love that word, those collisions happen. I would say before I was trained in positive discipline, my mindset was clearly that kid is at fault. And even though we collided, it was their fault and I'm not doing anything about it. And I would just stew, right? And I recently had a collision with someone else's child on a field trip thing. And it happened and I went and sat down and I started stewing and I was like, oh, this is my problem to clean up. I need to clean up this problem. I'm the adult here. All right. First, I need some time because I was hot. I was really hot, right? I needed time. And then, just like you were saying, I need some tools. What tools are going to help me out of this collision? Because we're all tangled up. Like she's way over there, I'm way over here, but we are totally tangled up right now. You could feel energetically, right, that you're tangled up. And what am I going to do next? And it took a little bit of time. I figured it out. We worked it out, but those collisions happen.
Yeah. Yeah, and I appreciate too I love you speak to analogies so beautifully, and they're so apropos. They're just right. You hit the nail on the head every time, and so I just love that. I was stuck in the mud, and I need to clean up, and that's what it feels like when you're in conflict with your kids or with anybody else. It just feels like I'm just stuck in it, and I always want to be clear that positive discipline, like you said, it's not going to make us perfect parents. It's not possible to be a perfect parent. It's not going to make our kids perfect because that's not possible either. But what it does is it gets us tools for getting unstuck out of the mud, cleaning it up, making it come back together so we can be reconnected, because we're here, like Dodie said, we're on opposite sides of the room, but we're all tangled up. And so positive discipline gives us tools for coming back together in a connected way so that we can move forward together and solve problems, which it sounds like through your family meetings, because you had skipped a meeting, I sense that you felt like, oh, if we'd had a meeting, we could have reinforced the agreement and talked about it more so that we didn't end up having a collision. And the meetings really do help you avoid having more collisions. Is that accurate?
Absolutely. It's this whole step by step, isn't it? And not, we're a year into her having a smartphone, and it's not this, now let's review the big document we made a year ago, right? That's so overwhelming. So it's been always step by step. And what also was missing was this very clear, we all different, and this is coming from this whole East German approach, you know. What I love so much about positive discipline is we're in this unit, but we all want and need different things. And that wasn't made clear in the family meeting that Friday before the weekend of what needed to happen and who needs what. So to find this democratic approach, that was the other aspect.
And that everybody's needs matter.
Mm.
Like, how lovely is that?
Yeah.
So Annett, we were talking about positive discipline tools. What are some of your favorite?
Yeah. So the first one I found is in Rudolf Dreikurs' book, you know, it was the chapter called Mind Your Own Business. And the card I would relate to that, not identical, but when I explain it, it might make sense, is control your own behavior, you know, and controlling your own behavior. Before I learned this tool, you know, or got to know it, I had the mind your own business principle. And it also goes a little bit back to Alfred Adler talking about we have these life tasks ourselves, and we cannot really interfere with the life tasks of others. And what Dreikurs explains in Mind Your Own Business is that the more capable we grow as a parent in our own ability and capability of raising children, the less we will tell others how they need to parent our child. And this is relating now to adults in our child's life, but I think that everything is in a relationship, and I started observing how I'm with my child. I'm also in other relationships, you know, about speaking my needs or speaking up or setting a boundary. And what I, alongside Dreikurs and the Adlerian principles, so I asked myself, how do I do this? How do I mind my own business? And I Googled it. And I don't know if you've heard of her, but I found Byron Katie, who has this tool called The Work, or it's also known as inquiry-based stress reduction. And that helped me to identify what the belief is behind the behavior and then work with that, you know. And so I did this for years. I became a facilitator for her method. And now it's all coming back to Adler and positive discipline, where we look at the belief behind the behavior. And Adlerian psychotherapists who I've introduced this to in the last year or two, they say that this tool is very Adlerian, you know, to question our beliefs. So that's my first tool. That's a long answer, but this whole, I needed direct guidance on to know when people say, just let it go. Don't take it personal. I didn't know how to do this. I needed to look that up, you know. And that's my first one. And then I think when it comes to schools, which we'll probably talk about a little bit in a moment, is I found it very hard with let me start this way. The tool, my second tool at the moment, and by the way, I'm observing that the tools are changing. Do you find that as well? There's different challenges in our lives, and I favor different tools every season. If you had asked me a year ago, the tools would have been different ones, you know. So where I'm at right now, I'm looking a lot of this, I call it my criticism wound, you know. So I love that tool of mistakes or opportunities for learning, because I'm discovering, even in my parenting and as a person, that when I allow a little bit and I surrender, that I'm making new discoveries. And when I try to control, and also I'm quite self-critical, then nothing new can somehow happen. Do you know what I mean? So, and what I'm observing is, and we spoke about this in our a conversation a few weeks ago, is that sometimes when we come from this approach of parenting or how we saw in the world, that we think we can't be seen to be weak, or else we will lose our authority. And I had this conversation with my 10-year-old yesterday. Would you like to know what he shared? So I said, you know, I said, why is that some people think they're weak if they make a mistake and they say it to others, you know, especially adults and children. And he says to me, well, if adults or parents think that they're weak if they make a mistake, what does that say about what they think about their child? And I just thought this is
Can you
exactly.
re-ask that really quick? Can you just repeat that? That's
Yeah.
such wisdom from a 10-year-old.
Oh yeah, that's so profound. So I said, if let's say a teacher or a parent is coming with this approach, I can't be seen to be weak, or else I will lose control over the classroom or in this family as a figure of authority. My son says, if we think that to not seem weak when we make a mistake, how does the adult then see the child when the child makes a mistake?
Yeah. That's
As,
such a deep question.
you know, yeah. And
Well,
I mean, the wisdom in this child. Sorry, Dodie, he's got so much to say about perfection on this. And sorry, Dodie, just this one thing that comes with it as well, that when when everything or just the end result counted and I needed to be perfect, I really grew up believing that I only have value if I'm perfect, you know?
Yeah.
And I asked my son another question about why is it not about the end result, which I can share. But Dodie, please, you go first.
I just wanted to say that it is so much about like perception. Like if we perceive our kids, which a lot of us do, like when they make mistakes or they do it wrong, like they're less than, and we view ourselves that way, like how difficult life is for all of us. And another piece of positive discipline, we think it's about just growing capable kids. It's really about regrowing ourselves, giving ourselves better tools. It's such personal development, because if we can look at our kids as a learning process, why can't we look at ourselves as in the learning process?
Absolutely.
You know?
And that we're allowed. It's this, I think my word for this year is, what is it? Befriending uncertainty and allowing, if we allow ourselves to not have to get it right all the time. Yeah.
Yeah, and I really like what you said about, is it about only the end result, or is it about the process? And I was raised to be very product oriented. And so you're not going to get any feedback or praise or criticism until I see the final product. And then it's, well, you did that right, or you did that wrong. And if you did that wrong, it's kind of hard to go back and fix it because I didn't, talk about the process. And so if I did it wrong, then I don't want to do that again, because I could do it wrong again. And I don't feel good about having done that wrong. And so when we are really just product focused, we do create, first of all, like you said, perfectionist tendencies. I've got to get it right. I've got to get it right. Oh my gosh, the stress of that. And if I don't, there's something wrong with me. And then the other side of that is, I don't want to try anything that I don't think I can do right. I don't want to do it if I can't do it well or perfectly. So that stops me from taking on new challenges that could really be a great opportunity for me to learn and express and experience new things, but I don't dare because I might not do it right. And so when that's our mindset, kind of like your son said, how does that shift into the way our children are thinking about themselves? And so in that way, then we're limiting them, and then they start limiting themselves. And we create this vicious cycle of perfectionism and unwillingness to take risk. And so I just really appreciate the profoundness of that tool of being minding your own business and working on your own stuff and letting children experience their stuff within the parameters of safety, of course, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, I
A
agree.
very wise son.
And daughter, when my daughter was this age, I would always ask her, and you probably did that too with your children. I would always explain some of the principles, which they know so well, I think better than us, and then I would ask questions. And I asked her a few years ago, I think she was 11, and I asked, what do you think when you hear about having the courage to be imperfect, And she shared with me, it shouldn't be called this, first of all. It should be called having the courage to accept, that you're imperfect, because it's not a choice.
Right.
That's 11.
That was the
I
balance of
mean,
babes, right? Oh my goodness. Yeah.
yeah, that's it.
And so you were going to tell us one more story about what you had asked
Oh
your son.
yeah,
I don't know if you
yeah.
remember what that was.
Yeah. And with him, I mean, he's teaching me so much about this perfection, you know. Since he was young, he would have taken the pen, you know, and played guitar since he came out of the womb, you know, and made up his own songs. And finally, since Easter this year, he actually picked up a guitar in our house and started playing chords. And I mean, I'm fascinated how fast this child is learning it. But so how do I say this without giving too much away? But he would try to get it right, and sometimes get really frustrated with himself. And I think we can all empathize with that, because we do that too. So I asked him the other day. He was playing one of his own songs with different chords, and I said, so when you're, let's say, writing a song, you know, how is it not about the final result or the end result or the final note of the song? And why does the process matter? And he said to me, he's 10, and he said, well, you need a momentum to build up. And if there wasn't a momentum, then you wouldn't really have a song. And I went, oh my God.
Wow. Beautiful.
So I should get my children to come in here and finish this interview.
Well, and I love the curiosity with which you approach that, because you could have gone in and told him what you thought about it. But by asking, and that's one of the tools that we use in positive discipline too, is what we call curiosity questions, just being curious with our kids. And Dodie's doing this, when we're drawing forth information from them so that we can understand more about what's important to them, then we are also able to better understand, like you said, what might be the belief behind the behavior from my child, and whether that's serving them in a good way or serving them in a way that maybe isn't so fruitful or good for them. And how can I address the belief rather than just the behavior? And how do I do that unless I know what's going on here and here for them? So your willingness to be curious with them sounds like it builds relationship with them as well as understanding of them.
Yeah.
And so I'm curious, you're using these tools in your family. And I know you offer services to your community. I'm curious about what you're doing with positive discipline out there in your community.
Yeah, so that is really interesting. And that's really changed since the last year, and since I found so many answers of questions I had, you know, that were answered by the two of you last September. So I think I was maybe 2 years into parenting courses, and there was a father sitting in one of the courses. He had a 2-year-old and a newborn. And at the end of the course, he was always very sleep deprived, and I wasn't sure, you know, what is he thinking? He didn't say a lot. And on the last night, he said, well, it's all well and good that we don't bribe or reward or punish our children, but then we're sending them into this world and have all these systems that are based on that. And aren't we confusing our children? And I thought this was so profound, and I didn't even know, you know, I think I said, oh, well, we need to start a revolution, so or something like that, you know. Also, having experienced this peaceful revolution in 1989, which was quite unusual in the history of the planet, you know, that a system was changed in a more peaceful way. And so that was planting seeds about, maybe this is not just for the parents only. Maybe we need to bring this into the community. And then what followed was I needed to overcome my own fear of working with teachers and going into school. And that was quite the process that took me a good few years. And the year before I joined your course, so September is such a teacher month, isn't it? I was at my son's school. We call it here primary school. I think it's your elementary school in the US. And there was a teacher there. I shouldn't say this, but you can relate to this. Was the favorite teacher in the school, but not with the children, with the parents. all the parents wanted this teacher to be the teacher of their child because that child did so well when they had this teacher, you know, and her method sounded quite Adlerian and positive discipline. She spent most of September connecting with her new class.
Mm.
And I met her at the school gate the end of September, and she said to me, I am near burnout. And I was shocked. I thought, how could the favorite teacher be near burnout? And I went home and I Googled, is there a positive discipline classroom educator in Ireland? At the time, I couldn't find anything. And I went, okay, I need to overcome all my personal struggles and I need to somehow share this with classrooms and teachers who want this. And then I signed up to your course, you know, which took, I think, started removing the fear, you know, of sharing it. And in the meantime, Kathleen McClay and Teresa Lasala, whom you probably know, they've been in contact with me. Both of them have roots here in Ireland. Do you know this? I don't know if you know this. They have family.
They're positive discipline trainers in the US.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's New Jersey. So we've been connecting, and I'm learning that their dream has been to bring positive discipline to Irish classrooms. So we might, in the coming years, set up something here in Ireland, you know. So
It's exciting.
yeah, and what I'm also noticing, and you can probably share from your end, but it's no longer as it maybe was in recent years that it was parenting and classroom. I know here in Ireland that because of smartphones and devices, a lot of behavior is now more obviously impacting classrooms, you know, and I think we need to come together as a community, you know.
And I think you've been doing a lot of research on, excuse me, technology use and screen time. And as you see the need for collaboration between parents and schools and the whole community in this, what do you envision? What have you done to take baby steps toward that vision? And what is your vision?
So my vision is I would love to do this work with parents, you know, maybe have parent evenings and then also to get the teachers interested, you know, so that it's not like, oh, that teachers are just stepping away. I would love if teachers came to the parenting courses and, you know, and or shared an interest in the method. And I started reaching out to principals here in Ireland of the younger years and the older years. And I had a conversation last week with one principal here in Ireland in the neighboring county who successfully introduced, like he calls it a charter, because we know that for now, as long as there's no regulation on what age children should be on phones or not, that parents feel under pressure when the friend has a phone, you know. And so if parents come together, that they work it out in a community, and these schools are really involved here in Ireland. So I want to see if we can do something for the area I live in, you know.
Yeah.
Phones are quite a challenge with everybody. You know, it's the first generation getting it as young children, the smartphone, right? And how to navigate all that comes with that. It's big.
And when
Yeah.
our kids were little, because Dodie's and my children are in their mid to late 20s now, which is kind of incredible for us to think about, because we raised our children together. So we've known each other's kids since they were little. But they were starting to get smartphones and really starting to text with their flip phones toward the end of elementary school. And then the smartphones were coming in when they were about junior high age. And then we were all kind of getting on them. And at that time, and video games have just really proliferated in their generation. And so we know some very basic Pac-Man and some things when we were in college and young adults. But then by the time our kids were growing up, things have just increased astronomically in the graphics and the ability and things you can do. And now, after a generation of that, we're starting to see the research on what it's doing to their brain development, what it's doing to their attention span, to our own attention span, to everybody's sense of focus and and our sense of community, because we're so stuck in our screens that we're not communicating as much with each others. And we blame kids and say, well, our kids this and our kids that. Well, we adults are doing the same thing. And so how do we work together for self-awareness for all of us, and then helping parents of younger children now who are just bringing them up take a look at the research to say, if we want this for our kids' brain development and their social development, here's what we know based on the previous generation's experiment, so to speak. How do we use what we know to better teach our children and monitor our own use of this wonderful tool, which can also become a liability for all of us when overused? So I appreciate that you are really focused on community building around this particular topic. And I wonder if you are engaging parents in parenting classes at this point. Are you still in the planning stages, or do you have some things or individual parent coaching going on?
So with the phones, what we're doing there is we're starting to create like subcommittees of parents associations. You know, the Minister for Education recommended for parents to do that until legislation is more clear. So I'm kind of involved there, and there's a real momentum in the UK and Ireland at the moment, you know, to start being active as parents. And that's the one side. And alongside that, I have my own work, and I have group memberships. I have a monthly membership. So I always loved that idea of meeting monthly, you know, and dipping into the principles and how we apply them. So I have a membership program called Effortless Flow. And there's all ages represented, you know, from very young up to 18. And a small group of parents meets there once a month. And I work with parents privately, one-on-one. And for the last year, I've had a package that is geared towards couples. And you probably can relate to this, you know, when you're a couple and you have young children. What couples have said over the years was, we want to get on the same page, you know. So I started offering this 3-month package where I introduced all these principles. And what I'm finding is, rather than getting on the same page with different parenting styles, I help the couple to accept the page that their partner is on, you know, and I really enjoy that work. And yeah, I just love it. It's so rewarding, you know. It's what I don't know if you see the same, but parents tend to come when they have challenges with the child, either in school or the child's misbehaving or new behavior that they want to nip in the bud. Do you say that in the US as well? Nip it in the bud before it gets too, you know. And when we start working with the parents, they often say, this is a lot more than what I came for. They're amazed, you know. And because we always look at the beliefs, what I observe often in the first session, I'd love to hear if it's the same for you, is you can see kind of the heart opening from the parent when they experience what it's like for their child and put themselves into the child's shoes, you know. And what I also love about positive discipline is how we don't say that we're the expert. And I really made that mistake in the early years. I thought I needed to know what I'm talking about. And then I saw the parents went away and they were more discouraged than before because they thought, oh my God, I will never get this. And so what I shifted it, and I want to make the parent the expert of their own child. And I had this visual, I don't know if I have it here, but I see the parent. Let me see. I got my son to draw me a treasure chest. Can you see this?
Yes.
Yeah.
So I see the parent as a treasure chest, you know, with all the manual, you know, the parents want a manual for their child, and the manual and all the treasure is inside. And I see like PD tools and the principles are almost like the keys that open that lock, you know, and that they can, when they know the principles, they can go into that treasure chest whenever they want and serve themselves, that they don't need an expert to help them out, you know.
Yeah, and I love, again, the analogies that you have are just so so deep and speak to such a deep level. And so what that says to me is, I just appreciate that you're talking about parents opening themselves up to find what's inside of them to offer themselves and their children and their family unit all together. And you're helping them draw forth those tools. It's such a beautiful vision I have. And Dodie, I think you were going to say something.
I love this work too. And helping parents, and you said this again, it's the lens, like helping them see their kids differently rather than their kids are a challenge. Their kids are challenged and they need help. They need support, and how to support them and encourage them rather than seeing them as the trouble or the challenge. That shift is big. Yeah. So Annett, so where can people find you? Like if they're, and I have another question for you.
Okay.
Do you speak only English, or do you facilitate, or can you coach people in other languages?
That's very interesting. I have that on my vision board. Did you see my vision board?
I did not.
Late last year, I started working with a client from Germany, and I also found Alfred Adler's book. So I'm only starting to really delve into Alfred Adler's teachings the last year, since I attended the first summer school at Larian Summer School here in Ireland. And I couldn't find the Phyllis Bottom book about Alfred Adler in English at all. So I ordered it from Germany. And it's one of my, let's not say challenges, but one of my, how would you say, to get me out of my comfort zone. I would love to do some kind of course in German this year, So,
So how can people find you? How can people find you and be connected to you and your work?
Yeah, so my website is effortlessparenting.ie. IE is for Ireland, and I'm mainly on LinkedIn, and I've got a YouTube channel. So, and my email is on that website where they can book a free call with me.
And do you only work with parents, or do you work with teachers too?
For the moment, I'm working with parents, but I would love to do an introductory course to teachers and then, refer them to you too, to do the course with you. That would be my dream,
We'd love to come to Ireland too.
Oh, really?
He wants to come to Ireland. I don't have heritage there, but I think it would be a wonderful experience. So that made me ask, and you said your YouTube channel. I by the way, have seen some of Annett's videos on your YouTube channel, and you really do quite an interesting set of presentations where you've interviewed a number of different people and have a lot of tools and resources and great information for parents on your YouTube channel. So I just really want to encourage people to go to. How do they find you on YouTube? Do they look up Effortless Parenting?
Yeah, Effortless Parenting. That's it. And on my website, there's also a blog post. So I share a lot of stories and free things as well on my blogs.
So is there, you've talked about so many things. Is there anything else that just makes you want to say, I want to say this about positive discipline, or I want to say this about how it's impacted my personal story? Anything else you would like people to know?
Oh, I think we covered so much. I just wanted to acknowledge the two of you because, what you've done for me on my personal journey. I had quite a difficult experience in the early years in school, so much so that I forgot that second, third grade period of my life. And that there are teachers like you, the two of you out there, and all the other ones whom I'm meeting through the organization, and the dedicated teachers who are out there, I think it's such a gift to everyone in the US, in Ireland, and everywhere, that we all come together. And I just really recommend your course, because my experience, which is also great, I did this parent educator training online. So it was like a self-study, which is great as well, because you see Jane Nelson in action with Lynn Lott, but how you delivered your course last September, I mean, it just blew my mind of how this is possible. I learned so much from a time management point of view and how to really be firm and kind at the same time. You know, there was something about it that I didn't really get, but you really delivered it on such a deep level to be both of those, firm and kind at the same time. And you've also encouraged me to look more into that approach of firm and kind. So thank you so much.
I appreciate that, Annette. And the truth is, I've been on my own journey. Like, I remember when I took my first positive discipline in the classroom training, I just watched that facilitator like, oh, look at how she is holding all of this space and leading, blown away, like just blown away by it. And baby steps that way, baby steps that way, baby steps that way. And ooh, I'm doing a lot of that now, but I couldn't have 20 years ago. Like, it's just a learning process.
Yeah, and that speaks to also like my husband and I started learning about positive discipline when our older son was 2. Well, he's 29 now. So technically we've been positive discipline parents for 27 years. And yet when I look back at those initial years, and I found it because I was in the classroom as a teacher myself, and I had been in the classroom for about 10 years at that point. And I didn't start out as a positive discipline type teacher. I started out as a punishment, reward, punishment, reward. If you're naughty, I punish you. If you're not naughty, then I use every reward that I can think of to try to manipulate you into doing what I want you to do. That's what I was taught to do. That was all the classroom management training that I had. And over time, I figured out that if I, like you said, kind of notice what might be going on for the child that's causing this behavior, that's causing a problem. And if I started having conversations with the child about what they needed, about what was motivating the behavior, about how we could work together to solve this problem so I can teach and you and your classmates can learn, we started being solution focused, which is what positive discipline teaches us to do. And so when I heard about it at first and said, oh, this really speaks to who I've become as a teacher, it's who I want to be as a parent. And yet my understanding at that level was so very superficial that I can look back to that and say, oh, if I could do this again, I would do some things so differently. And then over time, my understanding and the way you're searching and reading and learning, this is the more I facilitate classes and trainings, every single time I walk out with new insight, new learning. So we're constantly deepening our understanding. And once people, like you said, go for a coaching session or a classroom, they come in thinking that they just need this much, and they walk out with this much and they go, wow, I didn't even know there was this much to learn. And that's amazing, because then they have more, they have this to walk away with in terms of tools instead of what they thought would be this much. And so it's just this constant learning and growing experience for us, even when we are familiar with positive discipline. And I just really hear you doing that, constantly learning and reaching and striving. And I want to acknowledge you for that, for the depth with which you have moved yourself over a very short period of time.
Thank you so much. And you know what comes to mind in the end as well is, don't know if you experienced that as well. They sometimes say that when you're teaching it, you're almost learning more than the student.
Mm-hmm.
So if anybody out there is interested in doing this, you know, and stepping into it, you learn so much, don't you? And having that courage and having that courage to be imperfect. I also want to say, you know, I was so nervous today, and my children gave me so many pep talks. So it feels so great what this Adlerian approach teaches us about stepping out and having the courage to do something new. I feel so relieved now, you know, that I went out and did that for the first time ever. So thank you so much.
And the fact that your children who are 10 and 13 are encouraging you, what that tells me is that you have this relationship with them where they want to encourage you as much as you want to encourage them. And I believe that positive discipline has probably helped you be in this place with your kids where you have this connected relationship. And so what a blessing and a validation that is, I think, for you to have that with your children, because you've created that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining us today. This has been just delightful.
And we've enjoyed speaking with you. We hope people will reach out to you for more learning and information, whether they're in Germany or in Ireland or wherever they can reach you, because you have such wisdom to share with parents, with teachers, with your whole community. So thanks for being with us today.
Thank you.